Document, Part 1. The sky above New York City was unusually dark for a summer afternoon. Thick clouds gathered, but no rain fell. People on the streets stopped what they were doing and looked up, their faces filled with confusion and unease. High above the tallest skyscrapers, something massive loomed in the sky. It wasn't a storm or an airplane. It was a ship, a spaceship so enormous it seemed to block out the sun. News channels scrambled to cover the event. Reporters shouted into microphones, trying to make sense of what everyone was seeing. Social media erupted with photos and videos of the alien vessel, which hovered silently over Earth like a silent judge. Governments around the world called emergency meetings. Military forces went on high alert. And yet, despite all the chaos below, the ship did nothing. It just stayed there unmoving, as if waiting. Inside NASA's headquarters in Houston, Jacob Rivers sat at his desk, staring at multiple screens filled with data and live satellite images. His heart raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not now, not ever. Aliens weren't real, or at least that's what he had always believed until today. The screen in front of him showed the ship in detail. It was sleek and metallic, with strange symbols etched across its surface. Lights pulsed rhythmically along its edges, almost like it was alive. "Jacob," a voice called from behind him. He turned to see Claire Monroe standing in the doorway. Her curly brown hair was tied back and her glasses sat slightly crooked on her nose. She carried a stack of papers in one hand and a tablet in the other. "Have you seen this?" she asked, pointing to the image on his monitor. "I've been staring at it for the past hour," Jacob replied. His voice sounded tired even to himself. "Do we know anything yet? Any idea who or what they are?" Claire shook her head. "Nothing concrete, but listen to this." She tapped a few buttons on her tablet, and a low hum filled the room. At first it sounded like static, but then patterns began to emerge, tones rising and falling in a sequence that felt deliberate. "This is coming directly from the ship. I think it's some kind of message." Jacob leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "You mean they're talking to us?" "Maybe," Claire said. "Or maybe they're just broadcasting. Either way, we need to figure out what it means before someone else does." As if on cue, the lights in the building flickered. For a moment, everything went dark. Then slowly, the power came back on. On Jacob's screen, the transmission changed. Instead of random tones, words appeared, blocky letters forming sentences in English. "Your final warning was clear, but so was your defiance." Jacob froze. What does that even mean?" "It means they've been watching us," Claire whispered. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she adjusted her glasses. "They've seen what we've done, to each other, to our planet, and they don't like it." Before Jacob could respond, alarms blared throughout the building. Red lights flashed on the walls. Someone shouted over the intercom, "All personnel report to the main conference room immediately." Jacob grabbed his jacket and followed Claire down the hall. The corridors were crowded with scientists and engineers rushing toward the same destination. When they arrived, the room was already packed. Screens lined the walls, displaying footage of the alien ship from every angle. In the center of the room stood Director Harris, a tall man with graying hair and a stern expression. "Listen up," he barked, silencing the murmurs. "We've received a message from the unidentified object. It claims to represent a species called the Krill. They say they've given humanity warnings in the past and we've ignored them. Now they're demanding compliance. Or else." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone asked, "Compliance with what?" Harris hesitated before answering. "They want control of Earth's resources. Food, water, energy, all of it. If we refuse, they'll destroy us." The room erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped as people argued about what to do next. Some suggested negotiating, others wanted to prepare for war. Jacob felt overwhelmed. How could anyone decide something like this? What gave these aliens the right to demand anything? Claire tugged on his sleeve, pulling him aside. "We need to focus," she said firmly. "Panic won't help anyone. Let's start decoding more of their language." Maybe there's a way to reason with them. Jacob nodded, though he wasn't sure he agreed. Reasoning with an alien race that had just threatened to wipe out humanity didn't seem likely. Still, he trusted Claire. If anyone could find a solution, it was her. Back in their lab, they worked tirelessly. Hours passed as they analyzed every piece of data they could gather. The ship continued to broadcast its ominous message, repeating it over and over again. Outside, the world reacted in unpredictable ways. Some cities descended into panic, while others organized protests calling for peace. Conspiracy theories spread online, blaming governments, corporations, and even secret societies for summoning the aliens. Late that night, Jacob leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He hadn't eaten since breakfast, and his stomach growled loudly. Claire glanced at him, her own exhaustion evident in the dark circles under her eyes. "We can't keep going like this forever," she admitted, "but we have to try. If we don't, who will?" Jacob sighed. "I just wish I knew why they picked now. Why come here after all this time?" Claire frowned. "Maybe it's not about timing. Maybe it's about consequences. We've pushed this planet to its limits, Jacob. Maybe they're here to clean up our mess." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. Jacob didn't want to believe she was right, but deep down he couldn't deny it. Humanity had made mistakes. Big ones: pollution, wars, deforestation, climate change. The list went on and on. Was this really how it would end? With judgment handed down by beings from another world? As dawn approached, the two finally took a break. They stepped outside, breathing in the cool morning air. The alien ship still dominated the horizon, casting a shadow over the city. Despite its size and power, it felt strangely silent, as though it were waiting for something or someone to make the next move. Jacob looked at Claire. "Do you think we can fix this?" She smiled faintly. "We have to try. That's all any of us can do." And with that, they returned to work, determined to find a way to bridge the gap between two worlds, one human, one alien, before it was too late. Document, Part 2. The next morning, Jacob and Claire arrived at NASA headquarters before sunrise. The streets outside were eerily quiet, as if the entire city was holding its breath. Inside the building, however, it was a different story. People rushed from one room to another, carrying stacks of papers, laptops, and tablets. The tension in the air was thick, almost suffocating. Everyone knew that time was running out. Jacob headed straight for his desk, where he found new data waiting for him. The alien ship, which they now referred to as the Zorath, had sent another transmission overnight. This time, it wasn't just a simple message. It was a series of complex symbols and tones that seemed to form a pattern. Claire joined him moments later, her eyes scanning the screen with intense focus. "This is different," she said, pointing to one of the symbols. "It's not random noise anymore. They're trying to communicate directly." Jacob leaned closer. "You think they're responding to us?" "It's possible," Claire replied. "Maybe they noticed we've been analyzing their signals. If we can decode this, we might be able to talk back." For hours they worked side by side, piecing together fragments of the alien language. It was slow, painstaking work, but progress came in small bursts. By midday, they had managed to translate part of the message. It wasn't perfect, some words didn't make sense, but the overall meaning became clear. "They want to meet," Claire announced, her voice trembling slightly. "Not just talk through transmissions, they're asking for direct contact." Jacob's stomach tightened. "Direct contact? Like face-to-face?" Claire nodded. "That's what it looks like. But there's more." She hesitated, glancing at the screen again. "They've identified themselves. Their name is Krill." "Krill," Jacob repeated, testing the word. It sounded strange, almost alien, fitting given the circumstances. "Do we know anything about them?" "Not much," Claire admitted. "But based on their messages so far, they seem advanced. Really advanced. And they're not happy with us." As if to prove her point, the lights in the room flickered again. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Then, without warning, A holographic image appeared in the center of the lab. Everyone froze, staring at the figure that materialized before them. It was tall, much taller than any human, and its body shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Its skin was smooth and metallic, reflecting light in ways that made it hard to look at directly. Its eyes, large and luminous, scanned the room as though searching for something or someone. "My name is Xylos," the figure said, its voice deep and resonant. Though its lips didn't move, the words echoed clearly in everyone's minds. "I am an emissary of the Krill." Jacob felt his heart pounding in his chest. He glanced at Claire, who looked equally stunned. No one spoke. No one dared to interrupt. "You have ignored our warnings," Xylos continued. "Your actions have harmed this planet and endangered countless lives. We cannot allow such behavior to continue unchecked." The room grew even quieter, if that was possible. Jacob swallowed hard, trying to steady his nerves. Finally, he stepped forward, raising his hand cautiously. "Wait," he said, his voice shaking. "We don't understand. What warnings are you talking about? How have we ignored you?" Xylos turned its gaze toward him. For a moment, Jacob felt as though those glowing eyes could see straight into his soul. Then the alien spoke again. "For centuries we have observed your species. We have seen your wars, your greed, your disregard for the balance of life. We sent signs, signals meant to guide you, but you chose to ignore them. Now, you stand at a crossroads. Choose wisely." Jacob exchanged a glance with Claire. "Signs? What signs?" He wanted to ask more questions, but Xylos wasn't finished. "We offer you one final chance," the alien said. "Surrender control of Earth's resources to us. In return, we will spare your existence. Refuse, and you will face annihilation." The room erupted into chaos. Scientists and engineers shouted over one another, debating what to do next. Some argued that surrendering was unthinkable, while others insisted it was the only way to avoid disaster. Jacob stood frozen, overwhelmed by the weight of the decision before them. Claire grabbed his arm, pulling him aside. "We need to stay calm," she whispered urgently. "Panicking won't help anyone." "I know," Jacob replied, though his mind was racing. "But how are we supposed to respond to this? Surrender everything? Or fight back against something we don't even understand?" Before Claire could answer, Director Harris entered the room, his face grim. "Everyone listen up," he barked, silencing the crowd. "This isn't just about us anymore. The whole world is watching. Every government, every military force, they're all waiting for us to act." He turned to Jacob and Claire. "You two have been working on decoding their language. Can you establish communication? Talk to them directly?" Jacob hesitated, unsure if he was ready for such responsibility. But Claire stepped forward, her expression determined. "We'll try," she said firmly. "If we can open a dialogue, maybe we can find a middle ground." Harris nodded. "Do whatever it takes. Just remember, one wrong move, and this could end badly for all of us." Back in the lab, Jacob and Claire worked feverishly to craft a response. They used the fragments of the Krill's language they had already decoded, piecing together a message of their own. It wasn't perfect, but it conveyed their intent. Humanity wanted to understand, to negotiate, to find a solution that didn't involve destruction. When the message was ready, they transmitted it to the Zorath. Minutes passed, each one feeling longer than the last. Then finally a reply came. "You wish to negotiate?" Xylos asked, its voice calm but firm. "Very well. Prove your sincerity. Show us that you are capable of change." Jacob exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. Negotiation meant hope, even if it was fragile. He looked at Claire, who gave him a small, encouraging smile. Outside, the world reacted to the unfolding events. News outlets broadcast live updates, showing footage of the alien ship and interviews with experts. Social media buzzed with theories and opinions. Some people demanded immediate action, while others called for patience. Protests broke out in major cities, with crowds chanting slogans like "Save Earth" and no surrender. Amid the chaos, Samantha Hayes, a diplomat known for her ability to resolve conflicts, addressed the United Nations. Standing at a podium, she spoke with conviction. "We cannot let fear dictate our choices," she said. "The Krill may see us as reckless, but we are also resilient. Let us show them that humanity is worth saving, not through violence but through understanding." Her speech resonated with many, sparking hope in a situation that felt overwhelmingly bleak. Meanwhile, military leaders like Ryan Carter pushed for a different approach. As head of a global defense coalition, he believed humanity needed to prepare for the worst-case scenario. "If we show weakness, they'll take advantage of us," Ryan argued during a private meeting. "We need to demonstrate strength. Let them know we won't go down without a fight." The debate raged on, dividing nations and communities. Ordinary citizens weighed in too, sharing their thoughts online and in person. Ethan Cole, a mechanic from Chicago, organized a grassroots movement called Stand Together. Using social media, he encouraged people to resist the Krill's demands peacefully. "We've faced challenges before," Ethan told reporters during a rally. Berlin Square was packed with supporters holding signs and chanting slogans. "And we've overcome them. We can do it again, if we stick together." Back at NASA, Jacob and Claire monitored the situation closely. They knew the clock was ticking. The Krill hadn't issued a deadline, but their patience wouldn't last forever. Every day brought new developments, new tensions, and new questions. Late that night, as they reviewed data from the Zorath, Claire paused, her brow furrowing. "There's something else," she murmured, tapping on her keyboard. "These energy pulses, the ones disrupting communications, they're doing more than interfering with signals. Look at this." She pointed to a graph showing fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. Jacob stared at it, realization dawning. "You think they're weakening it?" "It's possible," Claire said quietly. "If they keep this up, it could have serious consequences for both planets." Jacob sank into his chair, feeling the enormity of the situation press down on him. The Krill weren't just here to negotiate or threaten. They were testing humanity, probing its limits and perhaps preparing for something far bigger than anyone realized. "We need to figure this out," Jacob said finally. "And fast." Claire nodded, her expression resolute. "Agreed. Whatever happens next, we can't give up." Together they returned to work, determined to uncover the truth behind the Krill's arrival and to find a way to protect humanity's future. Document Part 3. The days that followed felt like a blur. The world was in chaos, torn between fear and hope. News of the Krill's ultimatum spread like wildfire, sparking debates in every corner of the globe. Nations argued over how to respond. Some leaders wanted to surrender Earth's resources immediately, believing it was the only way to survive. Others pushed for resistance, convinced that humanity couldn't trust the aliens. Ordinary people were caught in the middle, unsure whom to believe. At NASA, Jacob and Claire worked tirelessly, trying to make sense of the Krill's intentions. They spent long hours decoding transmissions and analyzing data from the Zorath. Every discovery seemed to raise more questions than answers. The energy pulses disrupting Earth's magnetic field worried them deeply. If the Krill continued, their interference, it could lead to catastrophic consequences: storms, climate shifts, even damage to the planet's atmosphere. "We need help," Claire said one evening as they sat in their lab. Her voice was tired but firm. "We can't do this alone." Jacob nodded, rubbing his temples. "Who do we ask? Everyone's too busy arguing to focus on the science." Claire thought for a moment. "What about Alex Bennett? He's brilliant with systems and encryption. If anyone can crack the Krill's language faster, it's him." Jacob hesitated. Alex Bennett wasn't exactly known for following rules. A reclusive hacker who had once been arrested for breaking into government databases. He lived off the grid and rarely trusted anyone. But Claire was right. He was good at what he did, and desperate times called for desperate measures. "All right," Jacob said finally. "Let's bring him in. But if he screws this up, it's on you." Claire smiled faintly. "Deal." Getting Alex to agree wasn't easy. When Jacob and Claire tracked him down to a small apartment cluttered with computer parts and empty coffee cups, he was skeptical. His messy hair stuck out in all directions, and his eyes narrowed suspiciously when they explained why they were there. "You want me to hack alien signals?" Alex asked, leaning back in his chair. "This isn't some sci-fi movie. You're telling me real aliens are out there, threatening Earth?" "It's true," Claire said, holding up her tablet to show him recent footage of the Zorath. "Look, this is happening, right now." Alex studied the screen for a moment, then shrugged. "Fine, I'll help, but don't expect me to play nice with authority figures." With Alex on board, their progress accelerated. Together, they uncovered patterns in the Krill's transmissions that hinted at deeper layers of meaning. Hidden within the symbols were references to Earth's history, ancient civilizations, natural disasters, and even events that predated human existence. It was as though the Krill had been watching Earth for thousands of years. "This doesn't make sense," Jacob muttered one night as they pieced together fragments of the puzzle. "Why would they observe us for so long without doing anything? What changed?" Claire frowned, staring at the screen. "Maybe something happened to them. Maybe they're running out of time." Her words lingered in the air, heavy and unsettling. Outside, protests raged on. Ethan Cole's movement, Stand Together, had grown exponentially, drawing millions of supporters worldwide. People marched through streets, holding signs that read, "Peace over fear," and "We are one planet." Despite their determination, tensions boiled over in some areas, leading to clashes between protesters and authorities. Samantha Hayes, the diplomat, worked tirelessly to unite global leaders under a single plan. She believed negotiation was the only path forward. Speaking at an emergency UN meeting, she urged calm and cooperation. "We must show the Krill that we are capable of change," Samantha said firmly. "If we act recklessly, we risk losing everything. Let us prove that humanity is worth saving, not through violence but through understanding." Her speech inspired many, but not everyone agreed. Ryan Carter, the head of a global defense coalition, argued for a more aggressive approach. At a closed-door military summit, he presented his case. "The Krill see us as weak," Ryan said, pacing the room. "If we roll over and give them what they want, they'll take advantage of us. We need to prepare for war, show them we're not afraid to fight." His words resonated with some leaders, particularly those from nations with strong militaries. Plans were drawn up for potential attacks against the Zorath, though no one dared to act without consensus. The divide between diplomacy and aggression grew wider by the day. Amid the turmoil, ordinary citizens found ways to make their voices heard. In small towns and big cities alike, people came together to discuss solutions. Some organized community cleanups hoping to demonstrate humanity's capacity for positive change. Others wrote letters to governments, pleading for peace. Even children joined the effort, drawing pictures of humans and aliens shaking hands and sharing resources. Back at NASA, Jacob, Claire, and Alex made another breakthrough. Using data collected from the Zorath, they discovered evidence of past visits by the Krill. Ancient carvings found in remote regions matched symbols from the alien transmissions. These artifacts depicted beings that looked remarkably similar to the Krill, standing alongside early humans. "They've been here before," Claire whispered, staring at images of the carvings. "But why did they leave? And why have they come back now?" Jacob shook his head. "I don't know. But whatever the reason, it's bigger than us." Their findings sparked renewed urgency. If the Krill had visited Earth in the distant past, it meant their return wasn't random. Something specific had brought them here, and humanity needed to understand what it was. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. The Krill grew impatient, sending increasingly urgent messages demanding a response. Xylos appeared again via hologram, its glowing eyes scanning the room. "You delay," Xylos said, its voice echoing ominously. "Time is not infinite. Decide your fate, or we will decide it for you." Jacob stepped forward, his heart pounding. "We're trying to understand. Please give us more time." Xylos tilted its head slightly as though considering his request. Then it spoke again. "Very well. but do not test our patience further." When the hologram vanished, the room fell silent. Jacob turned to Claire, his expression grim. "We're running out of options." Claire nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Then we'd better find one fast." Outside, the world held its breath. Governments debated strategies, activists rallied for peace, and ordinary people prayed for a miracle. No one knew what the future held, but everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity's answer to the Krill's warning would define the fate of the planet. In the lab, Jacob, Claire, and Alex worked late into the night, searching for answers. Each discovery brought them closer to understanding the Krill, but also closer to realizing just how high the stakes truly were. Whatever decision humanity made, it wouldn't just affect Earth. It would shape the destiny of 2 species, and perhaps the entire galaxy. Document, Part 4. The discovery of the ancient carvings changed everything. Jacob, Claire, and Alex spent hours poring over images of the symbols, comparing them to the patterns in the Krill's transmissions. The resemblance was undeniable. These weren't random marks left behind by primitive humans. They were deliberate messages, warnings, or perhaps even records of interaction between Earth and the Krill thousands of years ago. "This is huge," Alex said, leaning back in his chair with a mix of awe and disbelief. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he scrolled through the data. If these carvings are real and they match the Krill's language, it means they've been here before, maybe more than once. Claire nodded, her eyes glued to the screen. "And look at this." She pointed to a section of the carving that showed what appeared to be a massive ship descending from the sky. Below it, tiny human figures stood with their arms raised, as if greeting or surrendering to the towering beings above them. "It looks like they came in peace, or at least that's how our ancestors saw it." Jacob frowned. "But why didn't they stay? If they were observing us for so long, why leave and then come back now?" Alex shrugged. "Maybe something went wrong last time, or maybe they had bigger problems to deal with." The implications weighed heavily on all of them. If the Krill had visited Earth before, it meant humanity wasn't entirely unknown to them. But it also raised troubling questions. What had driven them away, and why had they returned after so much time? While the team worked tirelessly in the lab, the world outside continued to spiral into uncertainty. Governments remained divided, unable to agree on a unified response to the Krill's ultimatum. Samantha Hayes pushed for diplomacy, organizing international summits to discuss peaceful solutions. Her efforts gained traction among some nations, but others refused to budge. Ryan Carter, leading the military faction, argued that humanity couldn't afford to appear weak. "We can't just roll over and hand them whatever they want," Ryan said during a heated debate on live television. "They'll see it as a sign of weakness. We need to show them we're ready to fight if it comes to that." His words struck a chord with many, especially those who distrusted the aliens' motives. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds chanting slogans ranging from "no surrender" to "peace over war." Some groups clashed violently, leaving streets littered with debris and tempers flaring higher than ever. Amid the chaos, ordinary citizens tried to make sense of the situation. Ethan Cole's movement, Stand Together, grew stronger each day. He traveled across the country, speaking at rallies and urging people to remain calm. "We don't know what the Krill want yet," he told a crowd gathered in Central Park. "But we do know one thing: they're watching us. Let's show them we're better than fear and division." Despite his optimism, Ethan couldn't ignore the growing tension. People were scared, and fear often led to rash decisions. He hoped his message would inspire unity, but he knew time was running out. Back at NASA, Jacob, Claire, and Alex uncovered another piece of the puzzle. Buried within the Krill's transmissions were faint echoes of distress signals, coded messages hinting at trouble beyond Earth. At first, they dismissed it as interference, but further analysis revealed something startling. The Krill weren't just here to take Earth's resources. They were fleeing something far worse. "They're refugees," Claire whispered, her voice trembling as she stared at the data. "Whatever's happening in their galaxy, it's forcing them to leave." Jacob leaned closer, scanning the information. That explains why they're so desperate. They're not just demanding resources because they want power. They need them to survive. Alex nodded grimly. And if we say no, they might not have anywhere else to go. The realization hit them like a punch to the gut. The Krill weren't invaders in the traditional sense. They were survivors, driven to Earth by circumstances beyond their control. But that didn't make their demands any less threatening. Sharing Earth's resources with an advanced alien species could change the planet forever. Could humanity adapt? Or would coexistence lead to conflict? As word of their findings spread, Director Harris called an emergency meeting. Scientists, diplomats, and military leaders gathered in a dimly lit conference room, tension crackling in the air. Jacob stood at the front explaining their discoveries to a room full of skeptical faces. "The Krill aren't here to conquer us," he said, projecting images of the ancient carvings and the distress signals onto the wall. "They're fleeing their own galaxy. Their survival depends on finding a new home, and they've chosen Earth." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone asked, "So what does that mean for us? Do we help them, or do we protect ourselves?" Samantha Hayes stepped forward, her tone measured but firm. "If we refuse, we risk provoking a war we can't win. But if we cooperate, we open the door to sharing our planet with an alien species. Either way, humanity will never be the same." Ryan Carter crossed his arms, scowling. "And what happens when they decide they don't need us anymore? When they take everything and leave us with nothing?" "That's assuming they're hostile," Claire interjected. "We don't know that for sure. Everything we've learned suggests they're desperate, not evil. If we approach this carefully, we might find a way to work together." The debate raged on, with no clear resolution in sight. Outside, the protests grew louder. Some people called for immediate surrender, believing it was the only way to avoid destruction. Others demanded resistance, convinced the Krill couldn't be trusted. Social media buzzed with theories and accusations, fueling the divide. Late that night, Jacob sat alone in the lab, staring at the glowing screen in front of him. The weight of the situation pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe. Claire found him moments later holding 2 cups of coffee. "You okay?" she asked softly, handing him one of the cups. He shook his head. "I don't know. This feels impossible. No matter what we choose, someone's going to lose." Claire sighed, sitting beside him. "Maybe there's a third option, a compromise. Something neither side has thought of yet." Jacob looked at her, his expression doubtful. "Like what?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But we have to try. Humanity's answer to the Krill's warning isn't just about us. It's about proving we're capable of solving problems without destroying ourselves. If we can do that, maybe we can earn their trust." Her words lingered in the silence between them. For the first time in days, Jacob felt a flicker of hope. It was small, fragile, and uncertain, but it was enough to keep him going. Together, they returned to the data, searching for answers. Each discovery brought them closer to understanding the Krill and to finding a way to bridge the gap between 2 worlds. Time was running out, but they refused to give up. Whatever happened, next they knew one thing for certain: humanity's response would define not just its future, but the fate of both species. Document. Part 5. The idea of a compromise began to take shape in Jacob and Claire's minds. They knew it wouldn't be easy. Nothing about the situation was. But they also understood that humanity couldn't afford to ignore the Krill's desperation. If the aliens were fleeing their dying galaxy, then simply saying no might force them into aggression. At the same time, giving in completely would leave Earth vulnerable. There had to be a middle ground. "We need to propose something," Claire said one evening as she and Jacob pored over maps and data. Her voice was calm but firm, her eyes scanning the information scattered across their desks. "Something that shows we're willing to cooperate without handing over everything." Jacob nodded slowly, rubbing his temples. "But what? What can we offer that won't destroy us or anger them?" Claire tapped a map of Earth on the screen. "What if we suggest limited access? certain regions where they can settle temporarily while we figure out a long-term solution. We could set boundaries, rules they have to follow. Jacob frowned. Do you think they'd agree to that? They've already demanded control of all our resources. Maybe not at first, Claire admitted. But if we explain it carefully, if we show them we're serious about working together, they might see it as a fair deal. Alex, who had been quietly tinkering with his laptop in the corner, looked up. It's risky, he said bluntly. If they don't like your offer, they could decide to take what they want anyway. Claire sighed. I know, but doing nothing is just as dangerous. We have to try. Samantha Hayes heard about their plan during a late-night meeting at NASA headquarters. She listened intently as Jacob and Claire outlined their proposal, her expression thoughtful but guarded. When they finished, she leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. It's bold, she said finally, and risky, but I think it could work if we present it the right way. Jacob glanced at Claire, relief flickering in his eyes. We thought so too, but we'll need help getting the message across. Samantha nodded. Leave that to me. I'll draft a formal response and bring it to the UN. If we can get enough support from world leaders, we might stand a chance. Her confidence gave them hope, though the road ahead still seemed impossibly steep. The next morning, Samantha stood before a packed assembly at the United Nations, her voice steady and clear as she delivered the team's proposal. The Krill are not here to conquer us, she began, addressing representatives from every nation. They are refugees fleeing a dying galaxy. Their demands may seem extreme, but they stem from desperation, not malice. Instead of refusing outright or surrendering entirely, let us offer them a compromise. Limited access to Earth's resources under strict conditions designed to protect both species. The room erupted into murmurs. Some delegates nodded approvingly while others shook their heads in disbelief. One man, a representative from a powerful military alliance, stood up, his face flushed with anger. This is madness, he shouted. We cannot trust them. Once they have a foothold, they will take everything. Samantha held up a hand, silencing him. I understand your concerns, but consider this. If we refuse to negotiate, we risk provoking a war we cannot win. If we surrender unconditionally, we lose our autonomy. A compromise gives us a chance to control the outcome, to ensure humanity's survival while helping the Krill survive as well. Her words struck a chord with many in the room. After hours of heated debate, the UN agreed to send a small team aboard the Zorath to deliver the proposal directly to Xylos. It was a dangerous mission, but someone had to do it. Jacob volunteered immediately, driven by guilt over past failures in his personal life and a desire to make things right. Claire joined him, unwilling to let her research go to waste. 2 additional crew members were selected: Marcus Lane, former soldier seeking redemption, and Olivia Drake, a linguist fluent in multiple ancient languages. The shuttle launched at dawn, its sleek frame glinting in the sunlight as it ascended toward the massive alien vessel. Inside, the 4-person team sat in tense silence. Jacob stared out the window, watching the Earth shrink below them. Claire adjusted her headset, double-checking the equipment they'd brought along. Marcus sat rigidly in his seat, his hands clenched into fists. Olivia flipped through pages of notes, muttering translations under her breath. When the shuttle docked with the Zorath, the team stepped out cautiously. The interior of the ship was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Biomechanical walls pulsed, faintly with light, shifting and rearranging themselves as though alive. Strange symbols etched into the surfaces glowed softly, casting eerie shadows on the floor. The air smelled metallic, sharp and unfamiliar. This place feels wrong, Marcus muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. Like it's watching us. Olivia nodded, her eyes wide. It probably is. Stay alert. They moved carefully down a long corridor, guided by holographic markers left behind by the Krill. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the ship itself resisted their presence. Finally, they reached a large chamber where Xylos awaited them. The towering alien, stood motionless, its glowing eyes fixed on the humans. "You have come," Xylos said, its voice resonating in their minds. "Speak your purpose." Jacob stepped forward, his heart pounding. "We've come to negotiate, to find a way for both our species to coexist peacefully." Xylos tilted its head slightly, studying them. "Explain." Claire took a deep breath and began explaining the proposal. She spoke slowly and clearly, using simple terms to describe the plan. Limited access to specific regions of Earth, shared resources under monitored conditions, and mutual cooperation to ensure the survival of both species. For a moment, Xylos said nothing. Then it raised one shimmering hand, pointing to a nearby wall. Images appeared, maps of Earth overlaid with glowing lines marking potential zones for settlement. "These areas," it said, "are acceptable, but know this. Failure to honor this agreement will result in swift retaliation." The team exchanged nervous glances. It wasn't exactly approval, but it was better than outright rejection. Jacob nodded, trying to mask his relief. "We understand. Thank you." As they prepared to leave, Olivia lingered for a moment, studying the symbols on the walls. Something about them felt familiar, like echoes of the carvings they'd studied back on Earth. She snapped a few photos, hoping to analyze them later. Back aboard the shuttle, the team sat in silence as they descended toward Earth. None of them spoke, each lost in their own thoughts. They had taken the first step toward peace, but whether it would hold remained to be seen. Below them, the planet loomed large, beautiful, and fragile. Humanity's home, and now perhaps the Krill's refuge as well. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: the future would never be the same. Document, Part 6. The shuttle touched down gently on the landing pad at NASA headquarters, its engines humming softly as they powered down. Jacob, Claire, Marcus, and Olivia stepped out into the bright sunlight, their faces pale but determined. The weight of what they had just done hung heavy in the air. They had negotiated with an alien species, one that could destroy humanity if provoked, and somehow managed to walk away with a fragile agreement. As they made their way inside, reporters and cameras swarmed them, shouting questions from every direction. "What happened aboard the Zorath? Did the Krill agree to your proposal? Is Earth safe now?" Jacob raised a hand to shield his eyes from the glare of the cameras. "We'll have a full briefing soon," he said, his voice calm but firm. "For now, all I can say is that we've reached a tentative agreement. It's a start, but there's still a lot of work to do." The team was whisked away to a secure conference room where Samantha Hayes and Director Harris waited anxiously. Maps, charts, and screens filled the space, ready for the debriefing. Everyone sat down, and Jacob began explaining the details of their meeting with Xylos. "The Krill accepted our proposal. For now," Jacob said, glancing at Claire for confirmation. "They agreed to limit their access to certain regions of Earth. In return, we'll provide them with resources under strict supervision." But Xylos made it clear, if we break the agreement, they won't hesitate to retaliate. Samantha nodded thoughtfully. "That's better than outright refusal. At least it buys us time to figure things out." Director Harris leaned forward, his expression grave. "Time isn't something we have much of. If this doesn't work, we're back to square one or worse." Claire chimed in, her tone measured but urgent. "There's more." While we were on the ship, Olivia noticed something important. The symbols on the walls, they matched the ancient carvings we found earlier. Whatever connection exists between the Krill and Earth goes deeper than we realized. Olivia pulled out her tablet displaying photos she had taken aboard the Zorath. She pointed to specific symbols etched into the walls. "Look at these. They're almost identical to the ones in the carvings, and some of them seem to tell a story, a history of their visits to Earth." Marcus frowned. "A history? You mean they've been here before?" "Not just once," Olivia replied. "These symbols suggest multiple interactions over thousands of years. Some look like warnings, others like records of cooperation. It's like they've been testing us, seeing how we evolve." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. The Krill weren't strangers. They were old acquaintances, returning under dire circumstances. Their decision to come back now wasn't random. It was calculated, driven by necessity. Outside, the world reacted to the news of the agreement. Governments issued statements urging calm, while citizens debated whether the compromise was wise or reckless. Social media exploded with opinions ranging from relief to outrage. Protesters clashed in major cities, their chants echoing through the streets. No surrender. Peace over war. Save humanity. Ethan Cole stood atop a makeshift stage in Central Park, addressing a crowd of thousands. His voice carried over the noise, passionate yet steady. "This agreement isn't perfect," he admitted. "But it's a chance to prove that humanity can adapt, cooperate, and survive. Let's not waste it." His words resonated with many, though skepticism remained. Ryan Carter, leading the military faction, criticized the deal during a televised interview. "Giving them even limited access is a mistake," he argued. "Once they're here, they'll push for more. We need to prepare for the worst-case scenario." His stance gained traction among those who distrusted the Krill's motives. Military bases around the world went on high alert, stockpiling weapons, and developing strategies to defend against potential aggression. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. Back at NASA, the team worked tirelessly to analyze the data Olivia had collected aboard the Zorath. Claire pored over the images of the symbols, comparing them to the ancient carvings. Patterns began to emerge, fragments of a narrative that spanned millennia. One sequence depicted humans and Krill working together to build structures and share knowledge. Another showed conflict, with humans attacking the aliens and driving them away. "This changes everything," Claire murmured, pointing to the conflicting images. "It's not just about survival. It's about trust, or lack of it." Jacob nodded grimly. "If they left because of conflict last time, why would they trust us now?" "They don't," Alex said bluntly, joining the conversation. He had been helping decode the symbols remotely and had just arrived at the lab. "But they're desperate. That's why they're willing to try again." Claire turned to him, her brow furrowed. "Do you think they'll honor the agreement? Or are they just buying time?" Alex shrugged. "Hard to say. But if we screw this up, they'll remember, and next time they might not bother negotiating." The reminder sent a chill through the room. Everyone knew the stakes were higher than ever. Humanity's future depended on proving it could live up to its promises. Days turned into weeks as preparations for the Krill's arrival intensified. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to set up monitoring systems in the designated zones. Diplomats drafted agreements outlining the terms of cooperation, ensuring safeguards were in place to protect both species. Meanwhile, ordinary people adapted to the new reality, adjusting to the presence of an alien species on their planet. In small towns and big cities alike, communities came together to discuss the changes ahead. Some embraced the idea of coexistence, organizing events to welcome the Krill peacefully. Others remained wary, stockpiling supplies and preparing for the worst. Schools incorporated lessons about the Krill into their curriculums, teaching children about the importance of understanding and respect. Amid the chaos, Ethan Cole continued to rally support for peace. He traveled across the country, speaking at rallies and encouraging people to focus on solutions rather than fear. "We've faced challenges before," he told a packed auditorium in Chicago, "and we've overcome them. This is no different. Let's show the Krill and ourselves that we're capable of change." His message inspired hope, but doubts lingered. Could humanity truly coexist with an advanced alien species? Or would the differences between them lead to inevitable conflict? One evening, Jacob and Claire stayed late in the lab, reviewing the latest updates. The first group of Krill was scheduled to arrive within days, and nerves were running high. Jacob stared at a map of the designated zones, his mind racing with possibilities. "What if we're wrong?" he asked quietly, breaking the silence. "What if this whole thing falls apart?" Claire looked at him, her expression softening. "Then we'll deal with it. But for now, let's focus on making it work. We owe it to everyone, humans and Krill, to try." Jacob nodded, taking a deep breath. You're right. We've got no other choice. Together, they returned to their work, determined to make the agreement succeed. Outside, the stars twinkled, faintly in the night sky, reminders of the vast universe beyond Earth. Humanity's answer to the Krill's warning had been given, but the real test was only beginning. Document, Part 7. The day the first group of Krill arrived on Earth was unlike any other. The world held its breath as massive transport vessels descended from the Zorath, their sleek metallic forms glinting in the sunlight. They landed in the designated zones, remote areas chosen for their minimal human population and abundant natural resources. Cameras captured every moment, broadcasting live to billions of people around the globe. Jacob, Claire, and the rest of the team gathered at NASA headquarters, watching the events unfold on a large screen. Their hearts raced as they observed the Krill disembarking from their ships. Tall and imposing, the aliens moved with precision, their glowing eyes scanning the surroundings. Human representatives stood nearby, flanked by security teams, ready to guide them through the initial stages of integration. They're here, Claire whispered, her voice trembling slightly. This is really happening. Jacob nodded, his jaw tight. Let's hope we didn't make a mistake. In the designated zones, tensions ran high. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter, keeping civilians at a safe distance. Reporters hovered nearby, eager to capture reactions from both humans and Krill. Some locals expressed fear and anger, while others approached cautiously, offering gestures of goodwill. A few even brought gifts, fruit, handmade crafts, and messages written in simple English. One such exchange took place near a settlement zone in Australia. A young boy, no older than 10, stepped forward holding a drawing of Earth and stars. He handed it to a Krill emissary, who studied it curiously before nodding slowly. The boy smiled nervously, then ran back to his parents, who hugged him tightly. Moments like these were rare, but powerful, offering glimpses of hope amid uncertainty. However, not everyone welcomed the Krill so warmly. In other parts of the world, protests erupted, with crowds chanting slogans like Earth for Humans and No Aliens Here. Clashes broke out between activists and authorities, leaving streets littered with debris and tempers flaring. Ryan Carter seized the opportunity to rally support for his cause, urging governments to strengthen defenses. We can't let our guard down, he said during a televised speech. The Krill may seem peaceful now, but history shows us that appearances can be deceiving. Be ready for anything. His words resonated with many, fueling fears and deepening divisions. Military forces increased patrols in the designated zones, creating an uneasy atmosphere. Despite the precautions, incidents occurred. Misunderstandings led to confrontations, some escalating into violence. Each event tested the fragile trust between humans and Krill. Back at NASA, Jacob and Claire worked tirelessly to address these challenges. They collaborated with Samantha Hayes and other diplomats to mediate disputes and reinforce the terms of the agreement. Communication remained a key issue. Though progress had been made in decoding the Krill's language, misunderstandings still arose. We need better tools, Claire said one evening, frustration evident in her tone, something that allows real-time translation without relying on guesswork. Alex, who had been working on a prototype device, perked up. I've been tinkering with something, a handheld translator. It uses the data we've collected to convert Krill symbols into English instantly. Want to see? He pulled out a small gadget roughly the size of a smartphone. When activated, it projected a holographic interface displaying text translations. Jacob tested it with a phrase from one of the Krill's transmissions. To his surprise, the translation appeared almost instantly, accurate and clear. This could change everything, Jacob said, his eyes lighting up. If we can bridge the language gap, maybe we can prevent more conflicts. Claire nodded enthusiastically. Let's get this to the field teams ASAP. Meanwhile, Olivia Drake continued studying the Krill's symbols, uncovering deeper layers of meaning. She discovered references to advanced technologies embedded within the carvings, tools the Krill had shared with humans during previous visits. These innovations, long forgotten, hinted at a time when cooperation had flourished. "What if we use this knowledge to rebuild trust?" Olivia suggested during a meeting. "Show them we're willing to learn from the past." Samantha Hayes liked the idea. "It's worth a shot. Let's propose a joint project, something that benefits both species." With approval from the UN, the team drafted a plan. A collaborative effort to restore one of the ancient structures depicted in the carvings. Located in a remote desert, the ruins served as a symbol of past alliances. By working together to preserve it, humans and Krill could demonstrate their commitment to coexistence. When the proposal was presented to Xylos, the alien emissary paused, considering carefully. Finally, it spoke. "Your gesture is noted. We will participate, but remember, actions speak louder than words." The project began soon after, bringing humans and Krill together for the first time in millennia. Engineers, archaeologists, and linguists worked side by side, sharing techniques and ideas. At first, interactions were awkward, marked by hesitations and mistrust. But over time, bonds formed. Simple acts of kindness, a shared meal, a helping hand, broke down barriers, fostering mutual respect. Despite these efforts, challenges persisted. Energy pulses from the Zorath continued disrupting Earth's magnetic field, causing storms and environmental shifts. Crops failed in affected regions, and wildlife populations dwindled. Scientists scrambled to find solutions, but the damage was spreading faster than anticipated. Claire grew increasingly concerned. "We can't keep ignoring this," she said during a late-night discussion with Jacob. "If the Krill don't stabilize the field soon, it could devastate the planet." Jacob sighed, rubbing his temples. "Do you think they know? Or are they too focused on their own survival?" "I don't know," Claire admitted. "But we need to ask them, for everyone's sake." The next day, the team arranged a meeting, with Xylos aboard the Zorath. When they arrived, the alien emissary greeted them with its usual stoic demeanor. Jacob stepped forward, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Xylos, we need your help," he began. "The energy pulses from your ship are harming Earth's environment. If they continue, it could lead to irreversible damage." Xylos tilted its head slightly, as though processing the information. "Our technology requires significant power. Without it, we cannot sustain ourselves," Claire interjected quickly. "Is there another way? Something that doesn't harm Earth?" For a moment, Xylos said nothing. Then it raised one shimmering hand, summoning a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, overlaid with glowing lines marking alternative energy sources, geothermal vents, ocean currents, and atmospheric phenomena. "These resources," Xylos said, "can sustain us without further disruption, but accessing them will require cooperation." The team exchanged hopeful glances. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. Together they returned to Earth, determined to implement the plan. Over the following weeks, humans and Krill worked side by side to harness these new energy sources, combining their knowledge to create sustainable systems. As progress continued, signs of coexistence emerged. Farmers taught Krill emissaries about agriculture, while scientists learned advanced techniques for resource management. Children played alongside alien visitors, their laughter echoing through once empty fields. Though tensions remained, moments of connection reminded everyone of what was possible. One evening, Jacob stood outside the lab, gazing at the stars. Claire joined him, her expression thoughtful. "It's not perfect," she said softly, "but it's something." Jacob nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah, something worth fighting for." Together they looked toward the future, knowing the road ahead would be long and uncertain. But for the first time in months, hope felt tangible. Humanity's answer to the Krill's warning had been given, and though the outcome remained unwritten, the seeds of understanding had been planted. Document. Part 8. Months passed, and the world slowly adjusted to the presence of the Krill. The designated zones became hubs of activity, where humans and aliens worked side by side to stabilize the planet's environment and share resources. New technologies developed through their collaboration began reversing some of the damage caused by years of neglect. Crops grew healthier, rivers ran cleaner, and skies cleared in regions once choked by pollution. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Jacob and Claire spent most of their time monitoring the partnership, ensuring that both sides adhered to the terms of the agreement. They traveled frequently, visiting the zones to check on projects and mediate disputes. Each trip revealed new challenges, but also moments of hope. In one zone, a team of engineers successfully harnessed geothermal energy to power nearby communities without harming the land. In another, farmers taught Krill emissaries sustainable farming techniques, blending ancient practices with alien technology. Despite these successes, tensions lingered. Some humans still distrusted the Krill, viewing them as invaders rather than partners. Protests continued in major cities, though they grew smaller and less frequent over time. Ryan Carter remained a vocal critic, arguing that humanity had sacrificed too much too quickly. His speeches drew applause from those who feared losing control, but his influence waned as more people saw tangible benefits from cooperation. Ethan Cole, on the other hand, became a symbol of unity. His grassroots movement, Stand Together, evolved into a global initiative promoting peace and understanding. He organized festivals where humans and Krill shared food, music, and stories, celebrating their differences while finding common ground. These events brought smiles to faces that had known only fear for so long. One evening, Jacob and Claire sat together in their lab, reviewing data from the latest environmental reports. The numbers were promising, carbon levels were dropping, wildlife populations were recovering, and renewable energy usage was rising steadily. For the first time in months, they allowed themselves to feel a glimmer of optimism. "This might actually work," Claire said, her voice soft but filled with relief. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. "I mean, it's not easy, but we're making it happen." Jacob nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah, and not just us. The Krill are putting in the effort too. They could have taken what they wanted by force, but instead, they're working with us." Claire tilted her head, studying him thoughtfully. "Do you think they trust us yet?" Jacob hesitated, then shook his head. "Not completely, but I think they're starting to believe we can change, if we keep proving ourselves." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Alex poked his head inside, holding a tablet. "You guys need to see this," he said, stepping into the room. The Krill just sent another transmission. Jacob and Claire exchanged worried glances before following Alex to the main monitor. On the screen, Xylos appeared, its glowing eyes fixed on the camera. Its voice echoed clearly, though its tone seemed different this time, softer, almost reflective. "Your species has shown resilience," Xylos began. "In the face of uncertainty, you have chosen cooperation over conflict. This is commendable." Jacob felt a lump rise in his throat. Was this good news or bad? Xylos continued. "We came to Earth out of necessity, believing it our last hope for survival. What we found was resistance and potential. Humanity is flawed, yes, but capable of growth. You have proven this." Claire gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. "Is this an apology?" she whispered to Jacob. He didn't answer, too focused on Xylos's words. "For now we will remain," Xylos said. "But know this. Our stay is temporary. Once our galaxy stabilizes, we will leave. Until then, we ask for your continued partnership, not as rulers or conquerors, but as allies." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room silent. Jacob turned to Claire, his expression stunned. "Did they just say what I think they said?" Claire nodded slowly, her eyes wide. "They're not staying forever. They're here because they have no choice, but they respect us enough to call us allies." Alex let out a low whistle. "Well, that changes things." News of the Krill's announcement spread quickly, sparking reactions around the globe. Some celebrated, seeing it as proof that humanity's efforts were paying off. Others remained cautious, wondering if the Krill's departure would leave Earth vulnerable to future threats. Governments convened emergency meetings to discuss next steps, while scientists debated how to prepare for life after the aliens' eventual exit. Samantha Hayes addressed the United Nations, urging leaders to focus on building a better future. The Krill's presence has forced us to confront our flaws and make difficult choices, she said. Now we must carry that momentum forward. Whether they stay for decades or mere years, the lessons we've learned will shape generations to come. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring renewed commitment to sustainability and cooperation. Schools incorporated lessons about the Krill into curriculums, teaching children the importance of resilience and adaptation. Communities banded together to implement green initiatives, determined to protect the planet they now shared. As weeks turned into months, the relationship between humans and Krill deepened. Joint projects flourished, producing innovations that benefited both species. Solar panels powered by alien technology brought electricity to remote villages, while advanced water filtration systems provided clean drinking water to drought-stricken areas. Even art and culture thrived, as musicians experimented with Krill-inspired instruments and writers explored themes of unity in their novels. One day, Jacob and Claire visited a newly restored site, an ancient structure once used by humans and Krill during a previous era of cooperation. Standing atop the ruins, they marveled at how far they'd come since the Zorath first appeared in the sky. "We did it," Claire said, her voice filled with awe. "Against all odds, we made this work." Jacob smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Not just us. Everyone played a part, even the Krill." Below them, a group of children laughed as they chased each other through the ruins. Among them were both human and Krill youngsters, their differences fading in the joy of play. It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes about the possibilities ahead. That night, Jacob stood outside gazing at the stars. The Zorath still loomed in orbit, a constant reminder of the challenges humanity faced and overcame. Claire joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "The future," Jacob replied. "Not just ours, but theirs too. Someday they'll leave. When they do, I hope they remember us fondly." Claire nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And when they go, we'll have to remember what we learned about trust, compromise, and working together." Jacob glanced at her, smiling faintly. "Sounds like a plan." Together they looked up at the sky, knowing the journey was far from over. Humanity's answer to the Krill's warning had been clear, not defiance, but determination. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing was certain. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could light the way.